Hello, I'm April Eaton. If you've been watching the pandemic news, the COVID cases, the number of vaccines in arms, you know we're slowly seeing signs of our country and our community recovering from the coronavirus outbreak. With change comes a new conversation as we move forward together for re-entry to Lake Providence Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor H. Bruce Maxwell is leading this conversation. He, of course, is our leader of the church and of this congregation. And also joining us is Dr. Alexion Britt, who is the Interim Vice President of Faculty Affairs and Professor of Public Health at Meharry Medical College, and Dr. Linda Plummer, who brings us our Lake Providence Health Ministry updates and is also an emergency medicine at Southern Hills Hospital. Just like we did last time with our first conversation, we didn't get here without taking precautions ourselves. We all had on our masks before we got started with the interview. We made sure we took our temperature, we sanitized our hands, and as you see, we're sitting socially distanced 6 feet apart. So now let's get on with this conversation. And we'll start with you, Reverend Maxwell, and some exciting news about re-entry to church. We are going to try to come back to church on Sunday, June 6th by safely seating 250 people. Now, I'm sure there's been a lot of prayer and a lot of planning and preparation for this reentry, but tell us what made you decide that now is the right time to come back to church?
What we have offered during this period of time leading up to now is the vaccine to quite a few of our membership. Of course, Meharry was gracious enough to help us to vaccinate quite a few of the members, and then to try to encourage the membership to receive the vaccine over the past few months since it has become available. Right after my wife and I received the vaccine, both doses, I did do that on our streaming service to let everyone know that I did take the vaccine and nothing had happened to me. So I wanted people to know that it was safe.
And let's talk also, Dr. Britt and Dr. Plummer. We see things opening up around town. We see things happening and opening around the country. In some places, the mask ordinances are being lifted and other kinds of things being lifted. When you look at what's happening from a medical perspective, what makes this the right time for us to come back to church?
We have begun to see the numbers decrease, but the mere fact that we are vaccinating and we know more than what we did a little over 15 months ago during this process. We know the transmission of disease, and we understand how to practice social distancing a little better. But we have been preparing with the leadership of Reverend Maxwell. We have had conversations since last May to begin this process as we would see a change in what's happening in society.
Dr. Plummer, I know you've been giving the regular updates. Give us sort of the state of Tennessee, if you will, and the state of our community when you look at what we're doing, how we're faring with this outbreak.
Sure. Right now, we're seeing decreasing numbers of cases across the country, as well as in Davidson County. Even though 37211 is a hot spot, we're seeing decreasing numbers. And I think, as a matter of fact, the health department believes that this is due to the vaccine. We're seeing decreasing deaths finally catch up with the decreasing cases. We're not moving as fast as we'd like to, but things are doing well. So we're hopeful that we'll continue in this vein. And because of that, this is a time, since we know things that we can do to help mitigate this disease, in addition to the vaccine, then we want to be able to do those things and lighten up a little bit. And as you mentioned, we've lifted the mask mandate for outdoors. Mask mandate for indoors will continue, but we will really just try to continue the things that we know that are going to keep us safe.
Let's talk about I'll call them the lucky 250, the members who will get to come back to church in person, to see you preach, Reverend Maxwell, to hear the choir sitting in these pews. How did you reach that number as far as the number that could come back for the first time?
One of the things that we did, we kind of measured out different areas of the church and tried to really see how we could socially distance everyone that would be in attendance. And that was also with the assistance of our medical experts to see exactly what we could do and make things comfortable for those who would be coming in, to make sure that they would be far enough apart, and then to make sure when they come in, that 250 will be wearing masks. There will be sanitation stations that will be there. We're asking them, if they do not have a mask, we're asking them to receive one that we will provide for them. So it was kind of we were trying to look at what we could manage with the very first service, and then moving into that month of June, toward the end of the month and into the earlier part of July, to see if we can increase as we manage those. One of the things I want to say, April, too, since we're in that particular section of questioning, I'm hoping that everyone who will register and attend service on that Sunday will be cooperative. And what I mean by cooperative, follow instructions. If the ushers are taking you to a certain section of the building to be seated, just follow the usher's instruction at that time. Yeah, you may have been used to sitting here or over there, but please don't question the ushers right now on what they're doing. They're only trying to keep you safe.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, Reverend Maxwell, and also our doctors that are responsible for sort of managing the health and the care of our members. Can you help us understand who's all included, first of all, in the 250? Does that include you as number one of the 250? Does that include the choir members? Or is that only the members of the congregation who can come back, equaling 250?
So the initial 250 count is inclusive of all persons inside the building. Again, looking at how many persons it takes for managing the service activities, and then also the volunteers, how many volunteers will be needed so that we can safely escort our members and our guests as they are coming in for worship service and being part of the worship process. And so that is all inclusive. And as Pastor Maxwell said, as we learn our processes and the best practices to ensure safety of all our members and the guests, then we can open up. But the idea is that we are practicing the CDC standards and guidelines for social distancing and best practices. We have interviewed, if you will, other churches, other sister churches, and I reviewed some of their processes so that we can identify the best processes. So it has taken us a while with the timing, but also our aim is just to ensure that our church family is safe.
And it may be a tough question to answer, but you talk about potential growth moving forward after we see how it goes with the 250. How long could that take before we might be able to grow and have a larger size audience here at church?
We really don't have a complete answer to that question. It all depends on, I think, future numbers as to when there are less people testing positive for the virus. More people are receiving the vaccine. That number goes up. And we see all of that data coming in, because that's something that most of us are receiving on our cell phones on a daily basis as to what the numbers were today, how many people were tested positive, how many people hospitalized, and those who passed away. So those numbers are going to factor in also to our decision to increase the numbers inside of the sanctuary.
And you started talking about this, you touched on this. How will you determine who gets to come to church? Talk a little bit about the registration again, what people need to do. I know we want them to be patient, but how do they start to register to come back?
This week, it should be something coming up on our website, a registration system, which is called Brushfire. Brushfire is a system where you, when it comes up, that you can actually register for the worship. I'm not completely understanding yet how all of that works, but there will be instructions that will be given in the very near future before we get further on into the month as to how people can actually register to attend.
Dr. Plummer and Dr. Britt, as our healthcare experts, it's important for you, I know, to be able to sort of monitor who's registering, the information they're receiving in order to keep everybody safe. What's the most important thing or some of the important things that you want members of the congregation to know as they decide to come back to church or not, to register or not?
One of the things we want to encourage our members, think about how you feel the day you wake up for church service. If you are not feeling your best, if you are feverish or feel warm or flushed, even if it may be induced by allergies, because we are in allergy season, stay home. We encourage that. We encourage you to watch Reverend Maxwell live. He will still reach you in the same manner, because we want you to think about your other church family members. If you're not sure of, if you've not been vaccinated, you're not sure of your status in terms of being positive, you would not want to bring something into the church. So we encourage members, think about how you feel the day you get it. Even if you've gone through the process to register, if you're not feeling well, please stay home. When you arrive on campus, you will be screened. There will be screeners at our main 3 entrances for entry into the sanctuary area. And you'll be screened for temperature, and you'll also be asked screening questions. And if you are identified as having a temperature, a body temperature at the time of screening, or you answer in a negative manner to one of the screening questions, you may be asked not to participate in this particular service, but join us online. Again, the guidelines that we have are presenting are for the safety of our church family. Because there's not a quick test that we can do at that moment to say you're positive or not, and even those can give you a false positive, we want people to be considerate. The family members of that fact, yes.
Are vaccinations required in order to come back to church?
No, they're not required. We're hoping that everyone will be, but they are not required to worship.
And then as people come back, and I like sort of where you were going, Dr. Britt, if you're not feeling well, then don't come. Think about the others around you. But also, what do you tell people in order to try to prevent us from having an outbreak? How do you monitor and continue to keep track of the people who are coming back to make sure you don't have something happening? Are you asking members to voluntarily kind of let them know if you all know if they've tested positive or not? I know I've lumped a couple of questions there, but I'm trying to get to that whole safety piece of how we keep from having this be sort of the center of an outbreak in our own congregation.
Yes, from a public health standpoint, I'll speak and then have Dr. Linda join in. So from a public health standpoint, we do ask that if you identify that you have tested positive, that you, in good conscience, call our office and just notify that, yes, you've tested positive and you attended the date of the service in which you attended. We will not ask any personal information. The reason that we do that from a public health standpoint is to begin to monitor if there are other cases of outbreak that may occur from members or guests that actually attend that particular church service. So it is a public health activity that we are asking for to do self-reporting,
yes,
if you will. That's a public health practice. And so that's what we bring forward. That's why we feel that we can safely come back together, because we're asking everyone to think about your church family as if you do test positive. or been around someone that was positive in the time frame that you may have participated in a particular worship service. Because if you're not vaccinated, and that's one of the things we don't know, is the transmission after you are vaccinated. And so again, in the last 15 months, we learned so much about this virus, but there's still so much that we are learning.
Dr. Plummer, do you have something to add to how we make sure we keep everybody safe
Sure.
and healthy?
Sure. I agree with everything Dr. Britt is saying. And because we are not asking questions about vaccination, we won't know that. So it's important that we continue all of the things that we know will slow down the spread of the disease. And that includes wearing our mask, washing our hands, and you'll find that there are masks here, as Pastor said, if you don't have one. You'll find that there are stations where you can use hand sanitizer. We will insist on social distancing, so you'll sit differently than you probably did previously, with fewer people on a pew, and you'll sit more by households. That also means that you won't be able to hug people that aren't in your household. That means that we'll be kind of avoiding those things that we feel naturally that we want to do, including hugging the pastor. We just,
Get ready to say that's going to be hard. We haven't seen each other in more than a year, and sometimes it's just the natural thing to do when you see someone that you love.
Absolutely.
To give them that hug, but we can't do that in this case.
Absolutely, that's going to be one of the things.
That way, run.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, and at least let it be on both, the responsibility of both parties. If you see someone who doesn't, because you don't even think about it sometimes,
True.
Right.
You come toward
That's
a person you want to hug, but make sure you say, oh, I love you, but we're going to just, from the far, air hug to keep it safe.
Right, because we're a family, so we want to do those things.
Yeah.
And we want to be together. But in the process of doing so, we have to remember that we also have the responsibility of keeping each other safe.
Amen.
There are certain people who will have to be here of the group of 250. And then is it sort of first come, first serve in that process of registering? Is that how that works?
It will be, and we're asking, if you attend service on the first Sunday of June, allow someone else to register for the second Sunday of June. Now, there will be those who will be consistent, who will have to be here, such as the musicians. No, I might skip out on y'all every now and then, so I'll leave my space open for an associate minister. But what I'm hoping that will take place, those who are very necessary, of course, our security staff, our police officers, they'll be regulars that you will see. The band, the musicians, they will be regulars, as well as those who operate our media ministry, they will be regulars. But then the rest of it, as far as ushers, deacons, they can rotate. As far as ushers, greeters can rotate. And then those who are attending, they'll be able to register. And as I said, hopefully, if you attended on the first Sunday, you'll give up your slot for someone else to attend on the second Sunday, and so on, until we can actually build the numbers back up. And another thing, April, that I wanted to point out, we're going to try to handle as best as we possibly can, maybe someone who is not familiar with the system that just shows up on Sunday morning, because that's going to be an issue as to where we can either seat them in another part of the building where they can watch by closed circuit TV, or let them social distance far enough away, and hopefully we won't have that great of a problem on that, or just ask them, please just go back home and catch us online this Sunday, and then next Sunday, please register before you come.
It's probably a good time to talk about the fact that you know, if the ushers have to make some tough decisions,
Yes.
because the numbers have grown too great, because too many people showed up without registering, we've got to have some understanding here.
Right.
And also, the service will still be online.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about, you know, making sure that we keep some of these new things that we've put in place since the pandemic so that all members can still participate in the service and watch the service.
Yes, most certainly. It will be actually live streamed we did live stream, what's that been, 2 Sundays ago now? It was actually live streamed. We had the choir back there. We had, I think, about 12 people singing. We had the band here. The media ministry was here. But we will have live streaming. And that's one of the things we hope that the membership will understand, too, as far as attendance is concerned. We will be going live at 9 o'clock. We hope that everyone who has registered to attend will be here and in their assigned seat at that time at 9. But we'll still, and then we're trying, and believe me, our media team, they're some of the best there could be, any pastor could hope to have. But they are meticulous in the way that they want things to run. There will be a difference as far as offering. The service itself will be very different now because we won't be passing baskets. There will be an offering basket at each door where you can drop your offering in with a deacon there to receive that. Even with communion will be different. We will not be passing trays. We have found a communion packet as to where we can, whoever prepares the table out there for you to pick it up, they will have sanitized, they will be using gloves to put those packets out and space them where you don't get to touch everyone. So nothing like that. So communion will be as to where you will receive it when you come through the door. There will be a specific time for that to be done in the service. But that will be different, very different than what we're used to. So things are changing tremendously, and the whole idea of everything is the safety of the membership. And I wanted to bring this out though. If you've experienced this thing in any capacity whatsoever, as to where you have seen how quickly it can take a loved one, I really wish that people would consider getting the vaccine. The little discomfort that you have, if any, because my wife and I did not have very mild things that happened after we took our second vaccine, first and second, but it was extremely mild. But even if you have a little bit of discomfort that may elevate into something, probably a fever or something like that, it's only letting you know, and the docs can probably bear me out on this, that it is working in your system and you're building up immunity against the disease once you receive that. But from personal experience, losing a brother to the virus, and then both my daughters have had COVID-19 and survived it. Some people can have it, survive, but most of you all out there who are my age or a little bit younger than I, we all have underlying conditions of some sort. And that is the reason why, especially in the African American community, the majority of us have underlying conditions, and it's imperative that we try to do something that will be of safety, not just to yourself, but your family. So I beg of everyone to please consider it.
Docs, Pastor Maxwell makes a critical point there about the importance of the vaccine. Are we still seeing people who are fearful of taking the vaccine, and how do we overcome those fears and talk more about the importance and the health and try to keep other families from not losing members, as Pastor is referring to?
Yes, it is very common to have people have some serious reluctancy, and especially since the recent issue with Johnson & Johnson,
Yeah.
even though it's been reinstated, there is that fear.
Yes.
So that and the short time of the vaccine being produced. The beauty of technology is that what used to take 10 years for a vaccine to come to fruition took a very short amount of time, but it's not because any shortcuts were taken. It was because of the advancements in medical technology and science. They've been working on the underlyings of this for a while in terms of the basis of actually producing the vaccine. And also the clinical trials. Typically with clinical trials, they go start A to B, and then you do B and you go forward. But with the clinical trials for COVID-19, they were running simultaneously. So that allowed for a production very early, a presentation, if you will. And we're under emergency use. And so, and I feel very comfortable. I'm very honored to say that the president of the university where I have the opportunity to serve sits on the FDA, and he's part of the research team that is reviewing the information presented by all of the manufacturers. And so these are scientists that have been working in the field for years. And they understand the reluctancy. Dr. Hildreth sits there, and he knows what it takes and the impact of this disease on our community. And that's why he's partnered with our church and other churches across Davidson County to bring the vaccine to the community, to meet us where we are. And that is what we are encouraging. The fear is there, and I understand that. But as Pastor Maxwell said, just the brief discomfort you experience is actually nothing compared to when you see people on ventilators or you lose a loved one. And it's something. I believe in vaccines. I've vaccinated both of my parents. They're in that special age group, and I don't want anything to happen to them. And I've received the vaccine as well. And so I encourage all of my church members. And it's a personal statement, and we respect that. We just want our church family to be safe, our community to be safe. This is one way, vaccination, that we can slow the spread of the disease. We have not reached the herd immunity level, which has been continuously discussed in the media. We're about a third of the way there, if even a third, of having the community vaccinated. And until we get to that point, there is still the opportunity for spreading the disease. And we just need to always be mindful. And there's also the discussions, and it's been in the media, of the variants. That's the other reason we want to encourage people to be vaccinated. When we are able to increase herd immunity within our community, it does allow for the slow progression of the transmission of the variants, which are in Davidson County and surrounding counties at this time.
Well, between the health ministry and Pastor Maxwell, you and your leadership team, it certainly sounds like you all have thought of almost everything, if not everything, trying to keep the congregation safe, trying to get us back to church. A couple of real quick fire questions, I'll call them, that have to do with coming back. One, talk a little bit about how everything will be communicated, how people can keep on top of the latest updates when it comes to coming back to church.
The latest updates will be on the website, Facebook, and the other social avenues that our young people use. Believe me, I'm the dinosaur, and I don't use a lot of the things that are going on out there, but I try to keep up because it comes through the office. I get the notice because it comes through the office. But I want everyone to know that those type of things will be posted on those different avenues that our church is affiliated with and what we're using right now. And anything that comes out that is urgent, Believe me, we have a call-out system as to where we can send it out immediately by text or telephone call directly to your cell phone or your home phone. Usually when the phone rings, it's ringing on my cell phone as well as the home phone at the same time. So those type of things we will continue to use to update the congregation on anything that's going on.
And then parking and transportation.
Parking and transportation. I want everyone to know also the two areas behind here, the main sanctuary right there at the fellowship hall, they will be available for parking. Bus services will not be run. The handicap parking spaces we will reserve for anyone that has need for the handicap parking areas. So we're going to try and maintain those spaces right now for all who will be in attendance.
And then entering the building, certain doors will be open, all doors open, some closed. What does that look like?
Certain doors will be open. And I know that right now we've talked about the main canopy door, the door that comes down under the arch bellway here. And then I think they spoke of the fellowship hall.
Yes.
The fellowship hall as to where you could enter also if you were going to be seated or wanted to be seated in the balcony area. And so we will have those three doors open as to where people can enter.
And then as we wrap up, any final thoughts, maybe quick thoughts from the health ministry perspective, and then Pastor Maxwell, Dr. Linda Plummer, maybe a final thought from your perspective as we think about what we're doing moving forward?
Sure. I think the thing that we want to do is to remember that we're trying to keep everybody safe.
Amen.
We were coming together as a family, but we want to do it safely. So there's going to be a lot of changes, and hopefully we'll be looking for that as the communication team and the media team bring us those changes in the coming weeks. Because the services will change, as the pastor said, many things will be different. So we need to keep abreast of what's going on so that you won't be surprised when you get here, and we can all cooperate, because when we see that we're all cooperating and we're all keeping each other safe, that's when we can start thinking about adding more people to the fold.
Amen.
And then Reverend Maxwell, a final thought, what you want our congregation to know?
Safety. As Dr. Plummer has said, our main priority is safety. I have talked to several members, and I see members sometimes in the store, wherever, or they call the church, and they'll tell me what such and such a church is doing down the street from us, or this one over here. I don't care what they're doing. My main concern is keeping people safe inside. Whenever we come back in, and we are focusing on that first Sunday of June, what's that, June 6th you said?
Yes.
We're focusing on June 6th. Our main thing is keeping everybody safe. Please, please, everybody who listens to this, please follow instructions once you get here.
Well, thank you all for answering the questions, and we thank you for watching Forward Together, a re-entry conversation with Reverend H. Bruce Maxwell, and of course our docs that are part of the health ministry.
Amen.
Thank you all so much.